Steam. You love it if you're on PC, you're confused by it if you play games on your console or phone, but they had some game festivals this year, and by a couple, I mean more than I can remember. So let's just focus on the actual Steam branded ones that use seasons as their differentiating factor. In total, I played about 71 demos over the course of a few of these events, and I was thinking to myself, how do I talk about these things? Do I break it down by genre? Do I talk about every single one in a straight line and make a 2-hour long video? And then I got it. These are still in, right? A modified tier list. Green usually means good, so that's taken care of, and the other ones will be meh and just no. Okay, let's start with the first festival of the year, the spring one. I played 36 demos from this event alone, and a lot of them actually came out. That funny wheel graphic earlier? That was the genre breakdown of this specific instance. As you can tell, lots of adventure and puzzle games, so let's just get some quick ones out of the way. Quench is a weird looking and controlling puzzler. You guide elephants through hazards with different power-ups and try to keep them all alive. The thing that killed it for me was the pacing. The elephants moved so slow, and most of the gameplay came down to hitting the right button at the right time in predetermined areas. Just no. We Should Talk is listed as an adventure game, but it's just an interactive branching conversation with some low quality models. Now, I don't have a problem with that premise. I like both of the Bithell circular games. This attempt, on the other hand, just didn't allow for the type of freedom it was presenting. You see, instead of choosing from a couple of different responses, you had the ability to build out a sentence with a bunch of different parts. So I believed in the type of nuance a system like that could accomplish. Unfortunately, your character has a set backstory that isn't told to you, and NPCs seem to not be really affected by your crafted responses. It didn't work for me, and my choices felt meaningless. Just no. But hey, I love a good management game, at least I assume I would since I've never played one, so my first outing was this demo called 100 Days. You manage a winery, planting grapes, deciding where your fields are going to fit with Tetris pieces, then deciding how to process them, like fermenting and then finally bottling them. You get to choose the bottle, the cork, and the label. It was cool, other than the fact that I had no idea what I was doing. I don't know about you, but I personally don't know how to make wine in real life, or if a certain batch should be sold to restaurants or collectors. It was still fun managing land and trying to make money, so with a decent tutorial, this could be really cool, but for now, it's a meh. Roki is a traditional adventure game which had quite a short demo, but has charm and a vibe that really clicked. It had some great whimsical music that fit with its tone and made me want to continue when the demo ended. To my surprise, it even got a nomination at the Game Awards? I mean, I didn't realize people knew about it. From the 35 critic reviews on Metacritic, the biggest publications were Rock Paper Shotgun and Eurogamer, both of which didn't even score it. I have a mighty backlog that I'm currently chipping away at, but Roki is definitely one that I'm excited to get to, eventually. I'm going to group Kung Fu Kickball and Son of Ra together. They are both local co-op games that do support single player against the computer. The former is a 2D side-scroller where you try to kick a ball into your opponent's goal. The ball has simple physics, so it can bounce all over the map, of which there are about 4. The mechanics are very simple. You could jump and you could kick. I tried to play for as long as I could with pure competition against the CPU driving me, but after a while I just had to put it down. There wasn't enough depth to the gameplay and it was extremely repetitive. Son of Ra, on the other hand, was a head-to-head tower defense match. You had to defend from waves of enemy troops by building towers and simultaneously sending out your own infantry. It ended up being that the low frame rate combined with useless descriptions of items made it impossible to enjoy my time with the demo. Both of these belong in the trash. Kobe! I feel like we need to spread out the results more, so let's talk about Evan Remains. This is a puzzle platformer with an emphasis on story. The story wasn't bad or anything, but the gameplay was. You play a character stranded on a beach, wait a second, and you do these jumping puzzles to progress forward. Now, this was just the beginning of the game, but it was so easy. As someone who doesn't specifically love puzzly experiences, I end up playing quite a few of them. Yes, there's something wrong with me. My point is, nothing about the puzzles felt particularly unique here, a complaint I don't have for some of the other puzzle games from this festival. The thing is, it wasn't bad, and there were some real stinkers, so I can definitely see someone else having a better time with this than I did. I've never played a Zachtronics game, but I imagine Neon Noodles is very similar to one. This self-described simulation experience as you put a robotic assembly line together to make food. The point is to optimize your build with as few robots as possible and complete objectives in the shortest time. I ended up beating and then replaying levels over and over again because I liked this so much. It didn't matter that editing actions was a little obtuse or any other little problems that arose. I loved this demo. While full-on Zachtronics games scare me, maybe I should look into them now. Moving on to Filament and Mystic Pillars, these puzzle games both share the fact that I did not beat them. Mystic Pillars had so many levels to play, I thought they accidentally put the whole experience up by accident. It also had a text-based story that I skipped through that appeared before every level. I still ended up beating over 25 levels, but burned out. I guess the reason I didn't continue with it was the presentation. You're just staring at these pillars, which is fine, but I like the design of like Kami and Line and even Hitman Go. I had an opposite reaction to Filament, which has an amazing presentation but was very hard right off the bat for me. It was like the second or third puzzle that really stumped me, and I wanted to keep playing because it just looked so cool. Leading around this little guy and lighting up pillars, some of which are different colors. But in the end, I didn't come away loving either of the two. I can definitely see how they could be enjoyed, though. Their value isn't lost on me. I've been avoiding it, but I need to get some of these Dark Souls wannabes out of here. That's Vigil, Elden Path of the Forgotten, pretentious name, and Neverynth. Vigil is a 2.5D Dark Souls clone. You hit enemies, they hit you back. They block you from a boss at the end of the level, and if you die, you start at the very beginning. The combat is slow, the movement is clunky, and there seems to be no way to dodge boss attacks. I think this was one of the shortest playtimes I had for a demo, which was only beaten out by Elden Path of the Forgotten. This horrible mess was awful. It plunks you in a world with no direction and lets you figure out what your objectives are for yourself. This might seem cool to you Soulsborne veterans, but even From Software directs you in a path. On top of being pathless, run game, your character moves like 20 pixels a minute. Enemies will get caught on walls, and when you go to hit them, unless the sword passes through the middle of their body, they did not take any damage. I was relieved when I uninstalled it. That brings us to Neverynth. Guys, it's painful to say this. This mediocre breast jiggle physics, roguelite, Dark Souls combat wannabe was bad, but not that bad. The environment was a copy and pasted room tile set, you ran into the same enemies over and over, and there was a giant boss fight at the end. But I beat the demo. I killed the boss fight, which was kind of fun, and even took the dumb enemies on the way seriously. There must be a glitch in the Matrix, cause even I didn't like Code Vein, but this almost worked. Now, the leveling up system wasn't in place, there was no crafting of items or inventory management, but unlike those two, this kinda gets a pass. Also, the same publisher for these games? Really weird. Keeping the surprise train rolling, we have Pushy and Pulley in Blockland. This is a kid's game. With a name like that, how could it not be? You're this little kid that pushes blocks around, super colorful, you gotta be like under 10 years old to enjoy this. Or so I thought. This score attack arcade style puzzle-ish game was so cool. Each level's on a timer and you have to figure out the quickest way to kill all the enemies while maximizing your score. At the end of the demo, there is a boss fight in this seemingly little kid's game. I had so much fun and wouldn't have guessed it, just so good. You know a really great way to ruin a good mood? Start talking about roguey games. That's right, I'm bringing roguelike and roguelites under one umbrella. Sure, I would like to talk about genres correctly, but I don't want to get in trouble for using the wrong one, so here are a couple of roguey games. Duster is a pixelated nightmare where getting lucky on a run is the only way forward. Become a cowboy, or whatever class that has stats you like. Explore an unmarked, open world and try to survive without food, supplies, or bullets. I died so many times because loot locations wouldn't have useful items and I would just get stuck. This dumpster fire of a demo really made me feel like I was wasting my time. This is essentially what I expect from Rogues at this point, but in a twist of fate, Duster stands alone in its awfulness. The other demos like Going Under have unique art styles, fun settings, and make an attempt at being good. The aesthetic for Going Under has you make your way up an office building, fighting in desk-filled spaces as you clobber goblins? Not only is the art eye-catching, but this is no ordinary workplace. You will encounter domesticated creatures, pick up comically sized clubs, and even ram opponents with cars. Yeah, this game is wild. It was fairly repetitive, but that could have just been the limitation of the demo, so I gotta give it a meh, but the full experience itself could be one of those hidden gems I keep hearing about. A for sure knockout for me would be Hyper Parasite. Its top-down, hazy-looking gameplay was initially interesting, but it was the main mechanic that got me really interested. You play as this ugly, useless blob that slinks around and only does a little bit of damage, but you're a parasite. That means you can hop into enemy bodies and control them. Hop into a police officer and use their gun, become a hobo and crash your shopping cart into opponents, open up the map that's taken straight out of Enter the Gungeon, and get to the boss room. With power pickups, unlocking new abilities, and more, this was one of the demos I spent the most time playing. Just a really fun time. The final Rogue was called Rising Hell. The thing about this game was that it wasn't bad. It did seem, however, that every level is just a randomly arranged vertical climb. You face a lot of the same enemies with little differences. The most damning thing though was that I could blast through it by button mashing. I did end up beating the demo, but it didn't have the long-staying oomph that would have pushed it up from the meh that I was feeling. It felt pretty good finishing off a genre, so let's close out a couple more. First up is Eldest Souls. I remember seeing this in a Nintendo Indie World and then being really surprised when I saw it during this festival. It's pretty similar to, well, it has souls in the title, so we all know what it's going for. The dedicated attacks, the long wind-up time, having a stamina bar. Oh wait, not a stamina bar. This boss rush has the limiting factor be fear of taking damage instead of running out of stamina, which makes it much more engaging for me. This brush makes throwing yourself against these huge enemies worth it. You get points to put into various upgrade trees that unlock new abilities or add duration on skills you already have. This is one of those demos that sold me on the game, and I'm kinda glad it moved out of 2020, but it's not cutting in front of any of the other demos in my ever-expanding backlog. Finishing off another genre is Elemental's Death Metal Deathmatch. That is a horrible title. This is probably one of the least known games I've talked about. It has the least amount of Steam reviews, and it kinda makes sense. It's a 4-player deathmatch co-op thing, but it's limited to local play only, and the demo didn't allow you to fight against computer-controlled opponents. So I had to find someone to play with, and it was fun enough. The art style is all metal music themed and the characters headbang. Ironically, I don't remember the music at all. It was meh, it's the quintessential meh. Do you hear that? It's the knockout round. Today's knockout round is here to speed this along because there are so many demos to get through. Why did I decide to make this video? Here's Jay and Silent Bob Mall Brawl, an arcade style beat 'em up from the good old days, except it has less gameplay depth, worse graphics, and was a total waste of time. Later Dater, a dating simulator for old people. It's what those kids call a visual novel, as there was literally no gameplay. The only action this demo got was being force quit in Task Manager. And the final entry into the knockout round, A Space for the Unbound. A demo that would crash on me every time I tried to open it, even after reinstalling, so I couldn't even play it. Whew, pretty productive knockout round. I like this momentum, so let's finish off these puzzle games. First up is Backworlds. This seemingly hand-drawn or pencil-style platformer is all about simple gameplay. You jump around as this cat-looking thing and move your mouse around to reveal another world. This inverse world lets you interact with objects, open up pathways, and puzzle stuff. It was a nice departure from the level-based fare that the other puzzlers embrace, but ultimately, I quit before the demo ended. It just wasn't for me. I wasn't having too much fun, and the aesthetic really was for children. So if you got kids, actually just get them Mario Kart. I keep messing up the title for this next demo. It's called Moncage, but if you hear me say Monocage, know I mess up words all the time, and just go with it. This puzzle game takes place in a cube. Each side of the cube is like a portal into another world where you open drawers, spin things, and zoom in and out of small details. The idea is to line up items from different sides of the cube to affect different worlds. Kinda just easier for you to see what I'm talking about. There were context clues that you could pick up which told a story of a child and their parent, which added a theming to all of the worlds. The idea for the different worlds on different sides of a cube is unique, and the demo was interesting. It was just really short, so I don't have much to say about it. I finished it and put it on my Steam wishlist, so I guess that's a verdict enough. I have to come clean to you guys. I've been keeping things from you. I've been holding back a couple of genres. We've plundered puzzles and rogues, scrapped the bottom of co-op, and even conquered the Souls wannabes. But where are the RPGs? The action-adventure games, maybe even games with just adventure and no action? Well, here they are. Starting us off is Hazel in the Sky. This third-person adventure demo has you build a plane by collecting parts and running up a tall tower. The performance was awful. It ran so bad. The character movement so sluggish. I had an awful time climbing the tower and looking for parts. The best part was that there was a little guitar minigame that was just a rhythm game, but it made me think back to A Way Out. You know, this guy's game.
There are like passionate people, there are crazy people, and there is me.
Anyway, YouTube would have to start paying me to want to play this when it comes out because I don't have faith in any aspect of this thing. I'm glad I'll never have to think about it after this. If you want a game to take it slow, then look no further than Lord Winklebottom Investigates. Solve mysteries as a giraffe with a sidekick, Hippo. This introduction was cheeky, a welcome difference to the tone games usually are. The writing was pleasant, and I liked this more traditional point-and-click adventure. Having characters talk to one another to get a sense of who they are, and puzzles seemed to be at a good level of challenge. It seems like the demo was the only thing that the team had completed up until that point, but this is a game I can see fitting snugly in my years-long backlog. An adventure game whose writing didn't fully bother me, but I did not vibe with, was Welcome to Elk. I decided to try it out due to its very weird art style and found another wannabe visual novel. There was one section of real gameplay and the rest was just clicking through dialogue. I don't have a problem with story or dialogue, but when you outwardly show yourself off as an interactive experience and all I'm doing is reading, we have a problem. Also, at the end of the demo, the main character is drunk at a party. A dude with crony friends walks in and essentially says that if he gets the chance, he will forcibly have intercourse with you, leaves, and then you go and walk to your cabin when it's pitch dark outside by yourself. This demo has problems. Let's clear the air with Liberated, which was another game that was first shown off at a Nintendo event. Its graphic novel presentation, coupled with its monochromatic look, really caught my attention, and seemingly a lot of others. So I was super excited to try out the demo and see what it was like to play. It was simply boring and bad. The aiming was obnoxious and your weapon wouldn't always fire when you wanted it to. The most memorable thing about it was I told my friend that I didn't like it and they were surprised. It's because that initial showing was so strong and the result was the complete opposite. I couldn't recommend anyone play it. Solasta Crown of the Magister is actually our first RPG. Isn't that exciting? Well, it's a demo, so it's not like I can tell you about amazingly written characters or fantastic locations. What I can tell you is that this is a single-player CRPG very much in the vein of Divinity Original Sin. You have a party of characters, they can level up, switch out gear, they have inventories, the battles are turn-based with moves taking action points, the whole lot. It seems like a fun game, but there are so many good titles in this genre that I personally will never have time to play the whole thing. But if you like this kind of stuff, give it a look when it comes out. I've mentioned the writing for some of these demos, but this next game doesn't need any of that. Heavenly Bodies is an adventure game? Alright. You play as an astronaut that uses funny anti-gravity physics to propel your body through a space station to complete complex tasks like pushing buttons and closing doors. I'm serious. You have to play with a controller since the buttons are mapped to different parts of your astronaut's body. I smiled for most of my time before I soft-locked a puzzle, but I still had a great time. This was so fun. I can't wait to be sucked out in airlock again for opening a door at the wrong time. Green is good. This Game Awards nominee came out of nowhere. I mean, in the sense of the nomination, cause Raji and Ancient Epic was pretty mediocre. Asset quality was low, so I don't know how they make it look nice in screenshots. The gameplay was fine. It was really familiar and didn't do anything special. So in a sense, sure, a solid first game. If you're looking for an action adventure title, here's one that a bunch of people thought was cool. Unless for some reason there were a mountain of great games out there. You understand from the way I'm talking that I didn't quite care for Raji, but I'm also not saying it was bad, so let's just move on. She Dreams Elsewhere is an RPG, though I didn't do much combat. I personally didn't connect with it. The intro is really long and you are shuffled from different rooms, having to read a ton of dialogue. I have a friend who really connected with the writing, but I did not. I felt it was trying too hard to be relatable and never succeeded. When it comes to 2D RPGs like this, writing is king because combat can't be. So I implore you to try it out if the art style seems interesting. That's what made me give it a chance, but this is a no for me. The final demo was Carry On. I feel I'm pretty adept at 2D side-scrolling action games, and the feeling I got from this demo was great. It was pretty short, but had a couple of rooms that showed off cool mechanics. You eat people to replenish health. You slither around in the dark to sneak up on them, crawl through some ducts to not get noticed. My favorite part was going into a room, breaking the lights and grabbing people from the ceiling where they couldn't see me. And when the alarm was raised, having drones pop out and scan the area for me, it just felt right. It was a great addition to the genre. I was pumped for this release. And that's where this demo is in a unique situation. You see, I have actually beaten Carry On, the full game. Like I said in the beginning, most of these demos have had full releases. While I loved that demo, having beaten the whole thing, I can't recommend it. Most of the rooms don't have breakable lights, they are baked into the environment. The seemingly infinite ways to approach an encounter drops to like 3 max if you're lucky, and with the addition of branching paths and upgrades that get you into different locations, the omission of a map really hurt my enjoyment. So I know I'm ranking these demos, but I have to be real in saying this was a green and is now a reddish. A radish? No, reddish, just now. And on that terrible disappointment, oh wait, I forgot about the best demos from March. You didn't think I wouldn't save the best for last, did you? Just don't expect it again for the other like 30-ish demos. Oh my god, this video is gonna be so long. As someone who doesn't care about coffee or really drink it, Coffee Talk doesn't require that level of fanaticism with the drink, even though you play a barista. There are actually a couple of games very similar to this. Valhalla and Red Strings Club both have you play as bartenders to tell a wider story about things. I actually played Red Strings Club and liked it quite a bit, gave it a shout out in my 2018 games video, so you'll be really surprised when I say I love this demo. You shouldn't have been surprised. These experiences are heavy on story and characters, and I was immediately sucked into this world. There were magical races of people and a whole city full of possibilities that could walk into your shop at any point. Also, you gotta make different drinks, which was fun too. Whenever it goes on sale, look out backlog, because you're about to be pushed back. The final demo from March, oh thank god, the Spring Games Festival, was Haven. The developers are called the Game Bakers, who previously released Fury, a fast-paced, action-packed boss rush. So when the studio announced they were making something new, I was in. Then I saw the trailer and was like, this is not what I was expecting. So going into the demo, I was really nervous. Gladly, Haven is well written, has engaging combat, and exploring was super fun too. The combat is handled with an active battle system that has you control both characters at the same time. You can attack individually or sync up to do extra damage. The flying around only took a couple of minutes to get used to before it was instantly fun. The story is presented in these visual novel-esque sequences, but dialogue choices and again, writing was so good. This is one of those games where when it comes out, look out backlog, cause you're about to be pushed back again. Absolutely crazy that over half of the demos I played this year all came out in March. Speaking of festivals, I wonder which one happened next. We'll find out after the break. I feel like my throat is gonna give out. I mean, like, this video is gonna be edited down, but it's been like 50 minutes. Oh, haha, hello, welcome back. Before we continue, I just wanted to point out that I forgot to put Pushy and Pulley and Blockland in the positive column, so I'm just gonna do that now. Okay, on to the next festival, which is the summer event. Coming in at 25 demos, this next batch really ended up surprising me. First up is an easy one. The demo for Ghost Runner was a short taste of what people could expect from the full game. It was even shorter when you look at all of the speedrunners who would complete it in under 4 minutes. Yes, this Cyberpunk, not that one either, adventure had you play a wall-running maniac as you dodged in midair and sliced up your enemies. With mechanics like a grappling hook and different routes to take through a level, you can understand why this was an exciting release for the year. I played the demo a couple of times and thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't wait to crank through it once I have enough space after getting the footage for this video off of my hard drive. Similar to Ghost Runner, a game that seemingly had ample interest behind it also dropped a demo. Skatebird has you play a bird on a skateboard. I get why you would want to immediately put this in the green column, but I actually had to give it a meh. It all came down to the fact that I have never played a Tony Hawk game before, and without a tutorial, I was lost. Sure, I still skated around, grinded a rail, but my combos were inadequate and I felt like I could have been doing better. So as long as there is some guidance in the full release, Skatebird is at the front of the line to being upgraded. A demo that is at home in the worst category is Resolution, can't forget the double I at the end. This Hyperlight Drifter ripoff was so blatant and boring, I couldn't continue on playing it. I mean, how are you just gonna copy a very successful game and get away with it? Did you think no one would notice? I guess if you're Genshin Impact it works out, but Resolution is not free to play anime enough. This is one I actually streamed here on this channel. Go watch my live groans if you really want more of this. But yeah, this is more trash. Kiwi is a co-op game where I couldn't get anyone to play with, but it didn't hurt my enjoyment. Each player would control a Kiwi and try to spell out words a letter at a time. Having control of only one still afforded me a great playing experience, as I could tell that the gameplay was there. Having to coordinate with someone to press keys and help each other out is a really interesting idea. Hopefully I'll have another person when I get the chance to play it, but even in the demo I had a great time. Our first puzzle game from this batch was a demo for Kine. Now, this game has been out on Epic Game Store and Stadia for a year. I've actually been quite interested in it due to the art style and theming. I mean, you play these instruments and they have unique abilities, complete levels. There's also the very familiar sounding soundtrack that adds a groove to your time playing. I loved this demo and was hell-bent on playing the full game. And you know what? I ended up getting the game and playing it. Now, immediately I knew I was in a different mental space. As I recompleted the levels from the demo, I felt I wasn't having as much fun as before. Creeping towards the end, I could tell that it wasn't the game's fault for my disconnect. Though there were some really hard levels, the difficulty wasn't part of giving Kine a meh. What I can say for sure is that if you like what you're seeing or you had a good time with that demo, the full game delivers on a full version of that. Back in the depths of hell, Neon Abyss sits comfortably in the roguey 2020 pantheon. Combining platforming and Enter the Gungeon probably sounded like a good idea, but wow did I hate this. Your default guns, bullets don't cross the entire screen, bad RNG all around, and a boring art style. Neon Abyss is like a poster child for a lot of the things I don't like about these type of games. I think I even gave the full game a trial on Game Pass and still hated it. I don't understand the hundreds of thousands of people that decided to buy it. A demo I didn't hate but didn't love was When the Past Was Around. The art is great and gameplay was straightforward, but that kind of works against point and clicks. The scenarios were pretty obvious and easy to figure out. There wasn't much challenge, and since there was no dialogue, getting invested in characters also didn't happen either. If the full release could expand in puzzle design, this could be a green, but in its current state, it's a meh. Another demo I'm so-so on is Chicory. This demo has you color in a black and white world with your magic paintbrush. Now, I don't have to tell you I'm not an artist, I mean, just look at my thumbnails. So having a game about coloring everything on screen wasn't immediately my forte. I found the story cute and the gameplay parts fun enough, but I was not compelled to color in anything I didn't have to. It really just comes down to a preference thing. I know people that loved the demo, and I had some fun, so an easy meh. I actually streamed myself playing the Windjammers 2 demo on my second channel. I adore this game. Competition was flowing through my veins as I yelled way too much for a first time player. I got hooked so hard. I can't describe the joy and unique experience that this was. Stumbling through the tutorial, I played online match after online match, just waiting for more. As I cursed myself out for my poor performance, I was actually just excited to keep going. This competitive frisbee game did it for me, and look out would-be challengers. I'll be there day one. A game that a lot of people were excited for, and that I had never heard of, was GRIS Tales. Everyone seemed to love the art style and were smitten with the turn-based combat, but I was fairly underwhelmed. The art wasn't aliased, a lot of stair-stepping going on. The combat was simple, and the main gameplay mechanic seemed extremely constrained. For benefit of the doubt, the combat and time mechanic could be expanded on and used more fluidly in the full game, but here, there was no creativity on the player's part. It was, do this thing to progress, no you can't just play around with it. It was lacking compared to that hype, and didn't fully click with me. This next demo prides itself on its story, and I'll let you know that they should be trying to make this game fun before worrying about something most will skip over, cause The Juggler is a boringly straightforward experience. I wanted to say it wasn't bad, but I couldn't think of any redeeming quality. I guess you team up with a bear at some point, which was a fun idea, but the game was so serious and won't have the polish of a Playdead production, so I can't recommend it. Another puzzle game from this batch that I did end up loving was Monsters Expedition. I liked one of the team's previous work, but unlike that game, this was much more approachable. It might seem simple, knocking down trees and pushing logs, but there are a lot of creative uses for this mechanic. I blazed through the demo and have been plucking away at the full release on and off. It's great. The production value is so high, and it's not afraid to have challenging sections that don't seem mandatory. It's actually available through Apple Arcade, so an easy game to check out. There were actually two pure action games in that summer festival. The first was Trepang 2, which is just a crazy first-person shooter that allows you to enter slow-mo. While the demo was quite long, the levels were fairly rudimentary. The gunplay wasn't anything special either. It's like Double Action Boogaloo, but in first person. It was fun, but I couldn't see myself paying for this, even if it was longer. The other action game was Ultra Kill. Now I know a lot of people seem to like this game. I have been saying that for a lot of these summer demos. It's one of these entries in the ever expanding I liked old Doom, give me more of that, the genre. I mean, it comes from the same publisher of Dusk and Amid Evil. I guess the main intrigue for this title is that your score is stacking and being rated as you earn points. It describes itself as taking the system from Devil May Cry, which is right on the money. I like clearing a room of bad guys, but going after high scores on top of that just isn't for me. I had some fun, but I'm not planning on picking it up again. Now, score attack works when we're talking arcade style sensibilities. That's when I'm all in. So that's why I loved Breakpoint. This is your classic 3 lives, survive as long as possible kind of games. The music was really good and I just kept playing, swinging weapons at opponents, deciding when to save the explosive attack, weaving through gaps in the enemy, and trying to survive more dangerous foes. I loved it. This is the kind of thing someone could spend a lot of time getting good at. That won't be me because I don't have the time, but I would like to give the full game a shot. Everforward is this puzzly third-person game where you play as this little girl and walk around. It relies on its story to do a lot of the heavy lifting, as the actual puzzle mechanics feel a lot like pure stealth games that I just never end up enjoying. Having to place blocks on buttons, avoiding detection from vision cones, it's the all too familiar stuff. I don't remember reaching the end because of how bored I was, so pretty self-explanatory why it didn't work for me. Ageless takes its visual inspiration from Celeste and Towerfall. I mean, it even has you wielding a bow and arrow in this platformer. Now, they try to add some mechanics based on that bow and arrow, but it wasn't satisfying to use. I also ended up streaming this. So again, if you want real-time groans, go check that out. But yeah, not really a good time. Genesis Noir was one of the games that I found out about during the mayhem that was the E3 vacuum. It has a really out there presentation, so when I saw the demo, I thought it would be a perfect way to see if we would click. It ended up being a little obtuse and unsatisfactory. I just randomly clicked on screen till I got to the end. It might be that it's too abstract for me, so I can't recommend this one either. The last demo for this string of no's is an action-adventure game called Arena of Spirits, which kind of reminds me of Stardew Valley in a visual way. I ran around hitting bugs, and that's really all I can say. The story also seemed to be a core part of the experience, but the mental health push was back in 2018. You're a little late. I'm just yanking the game's leg. I surprisingly don't have a bone to pick with its narrative, but it really needs to figure out its gameplay. It was bad, and that's why it rounds out the no's for summer. That means all that's left are some mez and greeny boys. Isn't that crazy? A different adventure game that got me more into its demo the longer I played was Garden Story. It does the thing I hate where it limits your attack with a stamina meter, but it worked here. Also, I love the design for everything. You play as this little grape, and you want to clean up the area so people can travel again. It's cute. I'm worried about its systems in the long term for a full-length game, but I had a fun enough time. I'm interested, but it wasn't a knock out of the park for me. So I'm meh. The last 2 demos from the summer festival that I played on the stream were Greek and Spiritfarer. Greek Memories of Azure is a 2D action-y platformer. It has this wonderful art style, kind of like Dragon Boy with the handmade feel of Hollow Knight. This was the first game I was excited for to come out in 2021. You play these little characters, one with a sword, the other a mage, and you can switch between them and explore this old castle. There was a spot for a third character that wasn't in the demo, but I couldn't put it down. I finished it and I'm very excited for what's in store when it comes out later this year. Spiritfarer I also loved, but in a completely different way. It's a platformer, it's a resource management game, it's a management game. You are the Grim Reaper. I mean, look at you. How could you not tell? You fare souls across an ocean as they come to term with their lives and eventually want to move beyond. You explore towns, cut down trees, go fishing. I adored my time with this demo and was excited to play the full game until I saw it was like 40 hours long, but we'll get to that at the end of this video. I can't believe it's been long enough that Rogues in 2020 got sequels. Continuing this trend was the demo for Everspace 2. This roguey has you pilot a spaceship to fight enemies, collect resources, upgrade your ship, I always thought I would love piloting spaceships in games. Maybe my perspective was colored by Battlefront 2, the old one. This didn't grab me like the first game did many others. I can't really raise any complaints about it though, I just didn't connect with it. These last two were some of the best demos I played all year and were great in the ever elusive narrative focused experience. The first is Starstruck Hands of Time. It has a slightly gross art style, kinda claymation-y, but it's about kids following their dreams by playing guitar. A large chunk of the gameplay is doing the Guitar Hero thing, which was fun. What helped the narrative land was all the humor and wacky situations that the characters ended up getting in. It doesn't take itself seriously. Also, did I mention you actually play a giant hand from the future that has an AI in their spaceship to change the course of history by helping these guitar playing kids? Might have something to do with why I love this. Now, Backbone is like the noir grown-up version of Zootopia. You play a detective on the prowl for a missing otter. I mean, wait, it is an otter. This is a fantastic game about conversations, intrigue, and a more interesting hook than anything else I played. You talk to so many different characters, and it's all brought together with this beautiful style, pixel art mixed with great lighting and animations. It demonstrated a real sense of presence, something that couldn't be looked over. Backbone is not only on my Steam wishlist, not only am I dying to play it when it comes out, but if it can keep it up, an easy podium finish at the end of 2021. Those were all the summer festival demos. A lot more good demos compared to the spring set, and we've now gone through 61 of the things. The end is in sight. Next up, we have the Gamescom event. Good old Jeff put this one together, which allowed for a lot more interesting demos to be released. I'm talking about games that probably wouldn't release their work publicly in an unfinished state. Seeing as I tried out many before this point, this festival only saw 3 new inductees to the tier list. The first demo was Unpacking. Now, I really enjoyed the developer's last game, which is a completely different style, but how could you not want to play a game about taking stuff out of boxes and organizing a room? While I did enjoy my time with the game, the problem that I ran into was that I couldn't always tell what surface I could put items on or not. There was also the problem of some items not being allowed to be placed in certain areas. These two things together felt restricting and hopefully can be addressed or altered when it comes out in 2021, so it's a meh for now. I also had a chance to play Undying, which was first shown off at a Nintendo event, I think. You play as a mom with her kid in a zombie apocalypse. It's a straight up survival game with zombies. I'm talking durability on items, crafting recipes, hunger meters, the whole 9 yards. Its self-proclaimed standout feature is story. The mom has been bitten and her motherly instincts have to combat the building desire to eat her son. Put me out of my misery. The final demo from the Gamescom thing was Tunic. I've been following the developer Dicey for a while since he models in Blender, so when I saw the demo, I was pumped. Now, sadly, this does not play as well as I hoped. A lot of people are like, this is that Zelda Fox game, that Fox Zelda game, and I'm like, duh. But look at this lighting, look at the polygonal shapes. It looked fun and cute, but it didn't feel right. There was a lot of delay between button presses and movement on screen. It just needs some tuning, because other than that, I did have some fun. I can only hope that things will continue to improve, and it seems like they will, because this demo was created in like early 2018. So it gets a meh. Moving on to autumn, the season when leaves turn amber and flutter to the floor. But those aren't the only things dropping, because I played 11 demos that dropped for the Autumn Festival. First we got Pumpkin Jack. This is a third-person action game in which you play Jack, who has a pumpkin for a head. This is a really basic hack and slash game. The combat visually reminded me of Medieval, and since the theming is similar, who knows if this was an homage in a way. I didn't really love my time with the demo. I don't even remember if I finished it. Looking back at the footage, it seems I did in fact beat the boss and complete the demo, but again, wasn't keen on my experience. Gotta give it a meh. It's not bad, so someone out there will like it, just not me. I hope squirrels don't make you go nuts, cause that's the title of the next game. Can you tell I'm going nuts? The visual style for this Firewatch/Stanley Parable mashup is what would catch anyone's eye. I mean, look at this psychedelic LSD trip. For the setup, stop me if you've heard this before. You're in a cabin, alone, communicating with someone else over the phone. You place cameras in a forest to watch squirrels when you find out they want to kill you. I actually like this because it was so close to Firewatch, and I'm interested if the game will ever find its own identity. The creators ended the demo on a cliffhanger that I didn't find that intriguing, but since this is coming to Apple Arcade, I know I'll play it. Wave Break, previously a Stadia exclusive, was a really wacky looking jet ski game that I thought was going to be like Wave Race. I was like, yeah, cool races on jet skis with great music and a clean art style. How wrong I was about racing. This is another Tony Hawk score attack game where you grind your jet ski on fallen palm trees and do flips up a half pipe. You can also shoot a gun while skiing around, so I don't know if multiplayer is integral or not. I didn't get the opportunity to play in any matches online, so I was stuck on the same level just cruising around. This is another demo that suffered from a lack of tutorial or any real guidance, which makes this a meh. I did really like the style and music though, so I am curious about this M-rated game. 2D platformers never really went out of style, but Aeon Drive reminds you why no one cared for so long. This poorly optimized game places its focus on timed levels. With many hazards along the way, it forces the player into a trial and error game loop that fails due to unintuitive level design, like jumping on a floating pillar above saws. I hated every moment of playing this and can't begin to fathom continuing. It tries to ease this pain with a teleport ability, but it doesn't easily integrate to some of the platforming. An easy no for me. The next game, Lucifer Within Us, was a game I actually had on my Steam wishlist when it looked like this, so playing the demo with updated graphics was a nice surprise. It's a psychic mystery game where you compile a timeline of events, look for clues, and interrogate people. I love that premise, but in execution it was a little clunky. It wasn't obvious how I was supposed to use the system because the game was looking for very specific actions, and the demo just kinda ends. From that experience, I would expect a not so rough continuation in the full game where there are no more tutorials, but after finding out the demo made up a third of the final release, I'm not gonna be jumping at this one anytime soon. This is a meh. Now, I've done a couple of videos on 2D action games, but they usually strike a chord with me, and Ouija is no different. This game has you pick up a spear that lets you fly towards opponents and other objects. Platforming and combat are intertwined as you take out enemies while maneuvering around projectiles. I really liked my time with this. It provided a great look into how levels will progress and hopefully expand on the great opening here. Now, I'll cross my fingers it pops up on Game Pass. This cute little game has you play as a demon. You shoot webs to sling around in Webbed. From this demo, it seems to be a collectathon of sorts, but I was really distracted by the spider you play as. I would go from being creeped out and slightly nauseous to very frustrated in trying to find the items that the game wanted you to grab. Since it was just a big open level, I had to search high and low, and I don't remember finding the very last item. While swinging is always fun, I have to give this a meh. There wasn't even a hint to look in a specific place. Where could it have been? The last game to have been seen in a Nintendo event at some point, Blue Flame. This tiny Dark Souls platforming, yep, you're collecting souls game was fine. I mean, it does what it sets out to do. There is no extremely garbage aspect to it. If you like this whatever art style, then you're good. I don't know, like, what did you expect? There are other games like it that are way better, but someone wanted this. I don't like it. I would put it in the no, so that's where it goes. Another game in a similar boat is Mayhem in Single Valley Confessions. I actually enjoy the art style for this one, but man does this miss the mark. It wants to be an adventure game with an interesting premise, but I just didn't care. It wants to believe that its gameplay systems were engaging and fun, but it was just so repetitive. I played for half an hour and didn't finish the demo. It just wasn't capable of achieving what it wanted. Like, don't make me put a box on a pressure plate, don't make me carry a torch through a dark place, and don't spend 13 minutes in a house where you have to throw beer cans at your abusive father to sneak out the house. I was bored. The final game, the final demo for this video was Windrunners. I have a weird fascination with games like this. Where'd it come from? Where'd it go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I don't know, but I love this version of it. The great music as you fly around shooting other ships. You have access to different abilities. In the ship I was piloting, it had rockets. I love the backgrounds and locations that bring it all together. I also love the giant machines that run on the ground. They look like the Wildcat from Boston Dynamics. I spent 30 minutes in a good way playing this game. What a great final thumbs up. It's over. It's finally over. Those were all the demos I played in 2020. I'm never doing this again. It postponed my best games of 2019 and now it's 2021, but I do have a message. It's some bad news. That best games of 2019 video isn't coming out anytime soon. Why? To the person that said, have fun playing yet another 2019 game, I want you to know I fully intend to play every single 2019 game that I have access to. That's right, I've already played 67 games from 2019, the most I've ever done for a year, but now, by the time I'm done, the count will be at 91. And that number will only slowly increase because who has the ability to stop buying video games? To make this partially enjoyable for you, the other viewers, anyone who's made it this far, I'll stream over on my second channel, hopefully once per game. That's basically all I can promise. If you have made it to the end and are not subscribed, this will be one of the only times I'll ask you to just click the button. Come on, man. Oh my god, there's already another one.